get some for Instagram as well? Is that okay?
Yes.
I'll
Yeah.
invite people over there right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So I always think, is this actually? It is live. Okay, fine. Cool. Let me take one as well.
Make sure nothing. I have my screen showing. Let me make sure there's nothing private there. Just me Googling stuff about sinus infection. Okay,
Oh.
here we go.
No worries. Okay. Cool. Are you good to go? Are you frozen? Oh
Yeah,
no.
I think I'm frozen. Give me 1 second. Sorry, that just
Okay.
happened. Let me close some stuff out. We can. Sorry, Rena.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I can hear you
Uh-oh.
okay. Yeah. Okay, I can. It's a funny. I mean, I have to just say that we are obviously on different sides of the world. So,
Right.
let me. Are you? I'm going to introduce what we're doing now. Okay.
Okay.
Hello. Okay. Hey, Bennett. This is Rena the Annabelle, and this is my podcast, The Sisterhood of Mummy Imperfect. Do you know what? I actually didn't even press record on my actual podcast thing, so I'm going to do that again. Okay, fine.
So much.
You know what? This is the thing when you go live. It's just like anything can happen. Okay, so I've now
There
pressed
we go.
record. So let me introduce this. Hello, Benny. This is Rena Deepti Annabelle, and this is my podcast, The Sisterhood of Mummy Imperfect. So if you are a regular listener, then welcome back. How you been, sis? And if you're a new listener, then where have you been? Each and every week, I put out a new episode, and in those episodes, I delve into different aspects of womanhood and I celebrate those women who, in their own way, are changing the world one bit at a time. I discuss female focused news stories with my fierce and fabulous guests. And my guest this episode is a woman who's doing her bit to change the world, definitely changing and challenging South Asian stereotypes, and especially for women. Natasha Khawaja, I hope I'm saying that right, is a LA
Perfect.
is a LA-based actress, blogger, and content creator, and she's known on social media as Purpose and Chai, and she shares her journey of breaking away from her family to pursue her dreams and following her heart with everything really, and when it comes to marriage, career, everything. So Natasha is joining me live from LA. Welcome to the Sisterhood of Mummy Imperfect, Natasha.
Hi, Rena. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk.
I'm so happy to have you, and I'm sometimes I'm actually in bed by this time because obviously I didn't realize it was an 8 hour difference.
I
Um,
so what time is it by you right now? You said 8 hours.
yeah, so it's gone past 9:30, and I
Okay.
mean it's 9:30 p.m. is not like, oh my god, we have to be in bed, but I have to pretend to, like, I lie down next to one of my kids who's 6 to put her to sleep,
Put her
and
to
so
sleep.
like when you're at, yeah, and then I kind of accidentally go to sleep myself sometimes. So it's a miracle that I'm not asleep, but I'm awake, I'm good, and I'm happy to have you.
I'm excited to chat. I'm usually asleep by now, 9:30 p.m. my time too, and I don't have kids, so I don't know what my excuse is. But I'm
Um,
usually in bed by that time.
that makes me feel better. That makes me feel a lot better, actually. That,
We need that sleep. Look, I'm about to hit my mid 30s. I need my sleep.
yeah, yeah. Okay, good. That makes me feel better. Okay, so you're younger than me and you go to sleep early as well.
I
So
need it.
cool, cool. So okay, just tell me a little bit about your blog, Purpose and Chai, and your social media channel. So why did you start it all? What was the reason behind it?
So, I was in LA pursuing an acting career. I'd been here for almost a decade, and social media came around, and I kept resisting. I was like, no, I don't want to be a part of this social media thing. I'm just going to keep going to auditions and pursuing my acting thing. And I wanted to be an actress because I loved it, but also because I didn't see any women that looked like us on the screens, and I wanted to help break down barriers. But when social media came around, it was actually my husband who said, I feel like you have a lot to say. I really think that you should start a blog, and I think you should just start sharing your experiences online because you never know who you could reach. And so I started just being open and authentic and talking about, my experiences as a first gen Pakistani American, the things that I'd experienced. And before you knew it, you were getting all these messages and these people reaching out saying, this is literally what I'm going through. And it was it was really to start building community. I thought it was so important that more of us get out there and be less afraid to talk about things that were otherwise swept under the rug for so long. And so, really, it was about I wanted to bring people together and just let other people know that they're not alone on their journeys.
And when you say not alone, like, you're from Pakistani family, I'm from an Indian family. We are
Mhm.
very, like, close-knit and,
Right.
everybody is kind of in each other's lives and, normally there are big families and stuff, but then it's like you actually had to break away from that, didn't you? Which I guess can make you feel very alone. Like, what happened with that?
So it did. When I first said that I wanted to be an actress, it was met with a lot of opposition, and I understand why. I'm 34 now. At first, you think that they just want to say no, but there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of dangers of trying to pursue a career in the entertainment industry, as a lot of stories have come out now over the last few years. And so the only support that I really had was the support of my older brother. And he was very adamant on, I'm going to help you make your dreams come true. And he was a big part of why I even ended up in LA. We worked these jobs together and we saved up money, and he put me in a car and he said, go make your dreams come true. So even around the time when, talks of marriage and arranged marriages and rishtas were like being brought to me, my older brother was like, no, like you're going to go pursue your dreams. And that was really the only support system that I had at first. And so I get out to LA, and it was a few years. And, unfortunately, my older brother is no longer in my life, but it was so just, it made all the difference for me as a brown girl to have somebody step up and be like, I believe in you. I got you. I have your back, and you're going to go do this, when everybody was like, you're not doing this. Like, where we come from, that's not what our women do. That was a lot of what I heard at first.
Is your family quite traditional?
Yeah, so I come from a Pakistani Muslim family, and there's a good balance. Like, my parents have been in between America and Canada for about, I want to say, almost 30 years now. And my mom and dad both work. We were allowed to be friends with everybody, and everybody would come over, and that. But at the end of the day, we had very strong traditional core values and beliefs that we were all raised to. That this was the expectation, that this is what they wanted from us as we got older.
And it's that thing as well, like, "Oh, we came here to make a better life, so you're gonna be
Right.
something professional. You're gonna be a
Right.
doctor or an accountant or something to make it all worthwhile," and obviously that is a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. And, not to downplay, but I wasn't the most studious person. Like, I don't think I would have been a doctor or a lawyer. They thought just because I was good at debating and arguing my points, maybe I should become a lawyer, but it really wasn't a path for me. I think I was always a creative. I was always into also, I loved literature classes and English classes and reading. And then when we were studying Shakespeare, that was always my passion. So, but I did have a corporate job that would have helped me climb the corporate ladder. And I quit that to leave to pursue my acting dreams and move to LA. So you can imagine my parents weren't too happy about that at first.
Yeah, well, number 1, it's like you're doing something which they're like, "We don't understand the point of," maybe, right? It's
Right.
it's not stable, like, "Oh, beta,
Of course.
accountancy is good." My dad said to me, "Be an accountant, it's nice and stable." And I thought myself, "Oh, I should be one because it's stable." When I went into that world, I was like, "I can't do this because 'cause I'm a creative." But anyway, so you chose that, and then you're moving away as well,
Yeah.
which is a massive
Yeah.
thing.
And
It's
and
supposed
you're
to be
not
like,
married. So there's like the
yes.
shame that comes with that because you're moving out, and then they're concerned with when people are going to ask, well, where's your daughter? Like, what is she doing? And I was moving at the time, my family lived in Toronto, Canada, and I was moving to Los Angeles. And when I first moved, my younger brother moved with me, but about a year later, he moved back. So it was always like, well, when are you coming home? Like, come home. You tried, it didn't work out. And I was so adamant, Rena, like I was not going to give up. Like, and I'm still to this day, it is a hard career to break into. It's not
Mm.
easy. They were right about a lot of things. There's a lot of instability. There's been, incidents where I go into audition and people have tried to prey on you or try to make inappropriate passes at you, and you dodge so many bullets. And I still have what I'm most proud of. I still have my self respect. I have my dignity, but I refuse to give up. I'm not going to give up because this is what I love to do. This is what I feel that I was put here to do.
Yeah, what the something which is like it makes your soul feel alive to do it, right? So you can't
Yeah.
stop doing it.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. But that's quite difficult to kind of be so far from your family as well. And it's like, and I know how, like I'm from an Indian family and we are like, although, they're modern in some ways and they also came to the UK like more than 30 years ago, whatever. But it's like you still have those kind of close-knit traditional values, which is nice also. But then it's
Yeah.
like it backfires if you want to do something different and go on your own path. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was hard. I mean, I had there was like layers, right? And there was like so many varied parts of the journey. Of course, I missed them. I didn't know anybody. I was in this foreign city. You're trying to do this, pursue this big dream. And then this is like, I came here in 2010. So you didn't see brown people on the screen like that. You just did not see representation. So you're like going into audition rooms and you're one of the only people of color in the room. And they're looking at you funny, because they don't know what to do with you. And then everyone's like, already, there's all these barriers stacked against you. And then I don't know anybody in LA. I'm by myself. And so, of course, I miss them. But then as I grew, there was also the realization of beginning what I like to call my brown girl healing journey. And then, there was also dysfunction and toxicity that I was growing and learning to shift away from and breaking generational traumas that I didn't even realize when I first set out to pursue all of this stuff. Like, I had no idea.
mm. Uh, um, I mean, in a way, like I have I can see some similarities between my story and yours, but in that, I did move to work. I moved like from the Midlands in the UK to London, and for us, that's far because obviously this is a tiny country, right?
Yes, yes,
But anyway, but then the whole thing of like I'm moving out of home, not for
right.
uni, but for work.
Work.
And I went to work in the media and like I went to work at the BBC and moved to London. And it's like even those things of like, you know, I was living somewhere which I couldn't afford really. And I shouldn't have actually been living there and paying that stupid amount of money for rent, ended up getting into debt. But it's such a learning experience to do all that because we just never have done it. You're nodding
Oh my
like
God.
you relate.
I'm nodding like crazy because it's so true. LA is one of the most expensive cities to live in the world. And I was, being raised Pakistani Muslim, I had my own place. I've always had my own place. I had roommates for like maybe 6 months when I first got out here. And then after that, I was adamant on doing whatever it is I needed to do to maintain my place because I didn't want to live with anybody. Like, I was like, I don't drink. I'm not doing any of this. Like, I don't want to live with somebody and have to deal with like certain habits. And you don't know who you can trust. And, it's like I said, it's LA. So everybody's here to pursue something and you just don't know, personality clashes. So at one point, I was working 3 jobs just to be able to afford my rent. And I was exhausted. And you do look back and you think, shoot, maybe I should have like tweaked some things. And I wasn't the most financially savvy person at the time. I didn't have the knowledge that I necessarily do at 34 in my 20s. And it was like, you were like, it felt like you just throwing away money. And I can't even tell you the amount of times there was eviction notices placed on my door. But I was like, I'm not giving up. Like, I'm not going home. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. It was me and my dog at one point, and I was like doing what I needed to do, get his dog food and make sure I had enough money to eat for myself. And it was tiring, Rena. Like, it was exhausting after a few years.
Yeah, I know. I've been there. I mean, so
Yeah.
I ended up staying in London
Mm-hmm.
for career, but also because I met my husband. And so did the same thing happen with you?
I did meet my husband, but I didn't meet him until 2016. So I had already been here for about 6 years by the time I met him. And then I met him literally as I was coming out of another like relationship situation. I was coming out a few weeks later. I met my husband. So it was so funny that you say that too, because I was actually thinking. So at the time I was working at, you guys have Domino's Pizza in
Yeah,
London? Yeah,
yeah,
so I was working at Domino's Pizza. I was a delivery driver, and I was just thinking the other day, I remember applying for that job. I sat at a Starbucks. I was at my wit's end financially. Like I was dead broke, and I was like, I'm just gonna apply. I'll go be a driver at Domino's and do other things. Not thinking that 5 years later, at that same job, I would meet my husband, which is where we met because he was working there too. And it was just, it's funny how life works. I gotta say.
Oh, yeah, so your eyes met over the mozzarella cheese or whatever it was.
You know what's funny, Rena? I was vegan at the time, so I didn't even eat any of the pizza at work. So it was just like so much going on.
And you did not have vegan. Now everyone's on the vegan thing, right? Nobody was on
Right.
the vegan thing then, I'm
No, I
guessing.
was vegan for a few years, but I'm not anymore. But yeah, I wasn't getting to enjoy the pizza at the time.
Oh, wow. So okay, you're leading this life in
Yeah.
in LA, and you meet your husband who's obviously, he's black. He's not
Yes.
obviously, your parents would have wanted you to marry a Pakistani,
Yeah.
and what were you leading some kind of double life here?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So then we began. So to be honest, like Sam, my husband, it was like my first serious relationship. Like, first of all, you grow up basic, you don't really know how to date, you're awkward, you go through these phases, nobody tells you what that's like. So this was like my first serious relationship where I meet this guy, he's courting me, we're getting to know each other, we're having serious conversations. And then it's getting serious over time. And I'm living this double life. So when my family's calling me, I'm quickly hanging up the phone, or I'm not being honest about I'm here with him or I'm doing this. And then that eventually started to take a toll on me as well.
It's really hard, isn't it? Like, because I get it, like, with me, because I knew as well that my parents want me to marry this type of a person, and the
Yeah,
race is obviously, let's be honest, like, South Asian people can be quite racist,
right, right.
and we know what they think of people who are not from the community, not from the community and religion, and then also like, you know, if it's a black person, it's worse in their eyes than a white person. I don't,
So I
that's
have
my
to be honest. No, that wasn't the case. And I get
it
it though,
was,
because that is a lot of the case, but it
yeah.
wasn't with our, like, it was never that. I never, like,
Was it
I always
religion?
like to be honest. No, if he'd been white, it would have been the same thing. And that's the honest to God truth. My parents were like, they wanted me to marry somebody Pakistani. Like that was important. And they wanted me to marry somebody Muslim. That was important. So, and that was drilled in us from when we were kids. Like that was like repeated.
So did
And
you think at any point, I need to stop this, or like, okay, this is not gonna go down well?
no, you know why, Rena? Because at that point, I had sacrificed a lot for my family and just people in general because we were raised as brown women to make those sacrifices.
Mm,
And I was at a point in my life, I was like, I'm not letting this go. I'm going to keep this for me. I met like this amazing person. All of like our big morals and values align, our life goals aligned. So there was never a thought that I'm not going to pursue this relationship because they don't agree with it.
and you know what? And it's hard to find somebody like that in this world because there's a lot of
Yeah.
people still searching.
Yeah.
You can't let that go.
No, Rena, that's the crazy thing. I have a lot of younger followers, and when they share some of their dating stories or they post things, I'm so far removed from it that I go, oh my gosh, I'm glad that I'm not single out there having to deal with some of the stuff that they even share with me. A lot of girls that I consider to be like sisters online. And I
Mm.
go, wow. And I just count my blessings because you're right. It's hard to find genuine, honest people who are also going to understand the differences between you and them and the baggage that I was essentially bringing, but still find a way to be respectful of you, your family, your culture, and make it work in your situation, in your relationship.
So did your family come to the wedding?
No, nobody came to the wedding. We got married in 2020 in COVID, and we got married in our apartment. It was just us, literally him and me and our dog. So nobody came to the wedding, and nobody was yeah, they weren't really supportive of it. But at that point, I had stopped having a relationship with certain people in my family. So I throwing it out there. I'm getting married. I just want to let you guys know, So it is what it is.
And they didn't do any of the thing that sometimes South Asian parents do, like, "Oh, well, I'm really old now, and this could be really bad for my health if you do
Oh, they
this."
did. Oh, they did. When I called and told them originally about Sam, that was the first thing. Why can't you wait until we're dead? The whole dramatics and the theatrics, and why would you do this? We didn't expect this from you, all of that. And that was even before we got engaged that I made that call because I didn't want to live that double life anymore. I wanted to be very honest and I wanted to live in my truth. I got sick of preaching certain things online and feeling like I'm a grown woman, I pay my own bills, but I'm having to kind of hide parts of me. It didn't feel genuine to me anymore. So I
Mm.
made that call long before we even got engaged.
Yeah, no, I respect that, and do you know what, Natasha? It's so funny because, like, this whole thing of, kind of promoting something else and being something else, it's actually so common because, ages ago, like, I was part of this, radio documentary. I was kinda talked into doing this radio documentary, about, like, Black and Asian people, how it's such a taboo and,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, look at this couple, they've got married," or I think we were about to get married or something at that point. And then like, "Oh, can you believe in this documentary?" My husband, he's a very private person and he didn't really wanna be, but then I was like, "Oh, come on, let's do it, and it'll be nice if other people are in this situation." So we were part of this radio documentary, and the journalist who was actually making it, she herself was actually in a relationship with an African guy. She was Indian and she was in a relationship with an African guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she was living with him. Yes, she was living with him, and she was hiding it from her parents, and she was older than me. Like, she was, like, 38, and at that time, I thought 38 was, like, ancient because I was, like, 20 something. So I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my god, you're, like, a big woman, like, and you've wanted to expose me and talk about me in this documentary, and you yourself, like, your dad comes over, you hide all your boyfriend stuff." That's and it's crazy.
It's so unfortunate, honestly, Dina. The type of messages that I still get, they're not just from younger women. I get messages from older women too, who are in that exact same situation. And it's really unfortunate and it breaks my heart but I understand the part where it's so hard to break free of that mindset that a lot of us have been conditioned to live in, and we live in fear and we are afraid of losing our family. I was having this conversation with a friend recently because, spoiler alert, but I recently did reconnect with certain members of my family. They've accepted my husband now. It was, a little bit of a journey, but I was talking to a really good friend of mine and I was just telling her, you just we can never say there's no right or wrong. I literally can understand if a girl is afraid and she can't. And I also understand the ones who are like, I pick my love over family. I just have compassion and understanding because we've all been there in some capacity, right? Where we were all raised to think it's wrong. We're somehow disrespecting family or culture. And it can be
And
such,
look at what they've done for us and all this, they've done so much for us,
yeah,
which they have.
yeah. Right. And you're carrying that and you just don't know what to believe. You don't know how to get. And I often do credit, going back to what you and I were originally talking about, if it hadn't been for my older brother who'd given me so much support in the early stages of my life, I do believe I'd still be who I am. But I think it helped to have somebody in my corner. And when I think about some of these women who have nobody, it's I honestly do, like, my heart breaks for them. It does. The only difference too, though, nowadays with growing up today versus before, there's the internet, there's social media, right? They can find people, they can find communities. It wasn't like that when I was younger. There was nowhere to turn to. There was no blueprint to necessarily follow. But that is my eyes were bugging out when you said that because I just don't think it's right to want to expose somebody else's truth and then not be able to walk sincerely in your own. But Rena, I live in LA. You can imagine I see stuff like that all the time.
Is it a bit of a crazy place, LA? I've never been. I've been to, New York, New Jersey, and that was, like, the first time that I went to America was 2018. And it is, like, I don't know about LA, but I don't know, I find it a bit of a bizarre place on the whole.
You know what? It's a beautiful place if we're just basing it off of that. I often tell people, you have to pick and choose who you're going to be around wisely. That would be if we lived anywhere, right? But, like I said, having to try to break into the industry and even in times when you try to network with other people who say that they're all for brown empowerment and then they're actually not, things like that. There's a lot of, like, you know, it's like you're in high school sometimes all over again. But I feel like even the world of social media can be like that, where there's popularity and there's clicks and things as such. And I've never been one to subscribe to that, and I'm not going to start at 34. So, there's a lot of that.
Mm. But, one thing that you said is that, like, when you were going through everything in your 20s and whatever, like, doing something, a profession which maybe people in your family hadn't done and they were discouraging you and you wanted to do it, and there wasn't anybody that you could reach out to it was just something that you wanted to do, right? And now, like, you're one of those people, obviously, because people are reaching out to you and talking to you about things that they're going through. You couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Even this whole thing of like marrying somebody, like if you're a South Asian, marrying somebody who was out of your race was like a really big deal. I didn't at the time, I didn't know anybody I didn't know any other Indian girls who were married to a black guy. I didn't know anyone. Actually didn't. I knew people that were maybe did I know? I don't know. Or rumors like, "Oh, she ran away with a black guy," that kind of thing, right? So I
Right.
didn't so it was, like I had to it's just you've gotta do what feels right to you, and there wasn't anybody else to reach out to.
No,
But
there was
people
nobody. There was no blueprint. I think the thing that made it a little bit easier for me is that because I grew up like we moved a lot when I was younger. So we lived in Chicago at one point, we lived in Texas, then we lived in Toronto. So I was exposed to so many different beautiful cultures and people from all walks of life. And I didn't, I was very Desi. I was very involved in my culture. I loved being Pakistani, like it was a part of me, but it wasn't enough to make me feel confused about being in this relationship, if that makes sense. Like I grew up around so many different types of people that I was comfortable enough to know, like, hey, there's no confusion in this. I love this person, he loves me. I am like I speak English at the end of the day, right? Like we have a similarities of being American. We have that in common. And so it was a little bit of a help in that way that I'd been brought up to be around all different types of cultures. We were never just like, oh, you can only be around Desi people. So that was never the case. And so I think that really served me well and was such a positive in my life later, so that there wasn't extra confusion around being disowned, not knowing where to turn to, not having blueprints around that whole, interracial relationship.
Yeah. I think I was brought up, mainly around Desi people, to be honest, and,
Mhm.
even like my dad still now, like, he's very involved in the local community, like the Asian community, and always was, and so, like, growing up, it was always like, performing, like, in, like, cultural programs and this and that, so that my whole life was that. So and that hasn't changed, and it never was gonna change, like yourself as well, you have a strong identity. Um,
Right.
but it I don't know, it like, for you, though, that whole thing of, like, okay, if I marry this person, then I'm gonna have to give up my family. And that seems like a very hard thing to do to because then the person that you're marrying, it's like they are everything. Did it feel that way to you that it's like, okay, he's gonna be everything or it's my family?
He did become everything, and I had to be very cognizant of doing so in a healthy way, which is where I'm very vocal about the fact that I've been in therapy for a few years, because I didn't want to burden my husband with everything that other people may have done or were their responsibilities or were the roles that they played, whether good or bad. And so that was very important for me to be in therapy before we got married. I'm still in therapy. We've done couples therapy because
Mhm.
I just didn't I knew it was wrong to put all of that on him, even in a way of, well, now you have to take on the role of mother, father, sibling. I
I'm
didn't want to
sure,
do
yeah.
that to him.
And we're only human, right? So, like, like,
Right.
even in arguments or something like that, like, it could come out of, "I
All
give
came
up
out.
everything for you," "I gave up my family for you."
Right. And I'm pretty sure it probably did come out. And then, then when we calmed down, it's like, well, I never asked you to do that. That was a decision you made, and they weren't right to expect you to choose anyways. So let's not even get into the dynamics of that. And let's keep we have a therapist who always says, keep the main thing, because we'll drift when we have differences, and it's like, no, 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 we got to focus on the thing right here, right now. So I think also what helped. I'm such an introvert and I'm so self sufficient because I was living alone for so many years, like before meeting him, and having to be a brown girl that's like fending for yourself. It just kind of made me even more like independent. So even little things, like I was telling someone recently, like I would take myself out on dates even after we got married. He's like, "Where you don't have to do this. I can do this for you." And I was like, "No, I appreciate that, but I like to do things for myself." So there was like this big concoction of all these layers that made me who I was, that were good and not so good in our relationship that we've been working through.
Mm. I think it's awesome the fact that, you know, you've been in therapy and you kind of address those things in therapy, because it is like I honestly have thought sometimes that if I thought that my family were gonna say, "You know what? You're disowned," essentially,
Yeah.
which is what it is, right? You're disowned because you're marrying somebody out of the race, and that's it, we're not gonna speak to you. I don't know how I would have coped with that, and then for sure, I know that, like I just said, I know it would have come out at some point, like, "Oh my gosh, you know, I've given up everything for you," and it's a lot, isn't it? Which is why I think it's good
Mm.
that you've addressed that.
Yeah,
Do
it
you
can be overwhelming for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. Um, do you kind of, you know, like, is it weird, like, things like, you know, like, certain things where you would celebrate with your family and cultural stuff that you're used to doing, like, maybe it's Eid in
Right.
your case, and, you know, Diwali for me, and then
Right.
it's kind of like just you and your husband, and, you know, you don't have that whole family set up, and you've gotta kind of make your own style of celebration. Like, how does that all go?
Yeah, so at first, I'll be honest, like I didn't do anything for my side of the traditions because when I was first disowned, I was having to go on this new journey now of trying to rediscover what it meant for me to be Pakistani. Because at the time of being disowned, a family member had said to me, "Forget your culture, forget everything that you were ever taught. You're no longer these things." And it was hard at first. Like it was really tough. So for a while, I didn't celebrate anything. I was just kind of like cruising through life. It would bring up feelings because you get online and everybody's like posting these beautiful pictures and family traditions and things. And, it would bring up emotions for me. I feel them and I let them go. And then, my husband, he grew up celebrating Christmas, but he wanted to do things his way, the way that maybe his family didn't do them. So one day he said, "Hey, let's do our own traditions. Let's start doing stuff. And at first I was a little hesitant because I was like, I don't want to celebrate Christmas. Like I'm Pakistani, like we do not celebrate Christmas. But then when he broke it down for me and he said, "Hey, we're gonna do this for us. Let's go together. Let's go buy a tree. Let's go get decorations. Let's do all of this together. We're gonna sit there and drink hot chocolate and play, Charlie Brown Christmas music." I was like, "Oh, you know what? This is so much deeper than what you think it is. This is about finding new ways to make you feel good and the people that you love. This is something you can do together." So then we started doing that. And then, he kept saying to me from day one, he's like, "Let's do something for like, the holy month and let's do something for Eid." And I was like, "I just don't know." And then eventually we started to, I learned how to make savanya, like the kheer dish that was always
Yeah.
made on Eid in our home. And he's like, "Oh, put on a shalwar kameez." Like, let's do something. And then, started just saying Eid Mubarak. And we would just do little things. He's like, "Let's go eat some Pakistani food." And so that just became a new norm for us. We were like, "Hey, we can make this what we want." That's the beautiful part of being adults now. We're no longer being told how to do this. We get to create it for us. And we get to redefine what love, family, and tradition can be for when we have kids.
Yeah, and I think, like, this whole thing of, like, when you have kids, I think for me, that's when it became even more important to
Right.
do those things and do traditions in your own way, because, like, I want them to
Yes.
know stuff, because it's like, you know, I probably wouldn't have been bothered to do those kind of things. No,
Right. Right.
we did do our own kind of Diwali, and even I wasn't disowned, but if, you know, we were in London and my family were in the Midlands and it was too far to go on Diwali, for example, and, you know, the area that I lived in, there weren't a lot of people celebrating Diwali, so it was just kinda like, "Oh, you know, why don't we do something, or we go to like a restaurant or whatever, or do like light
Right.
divas at home or something like that, right?" And then I
Mhm.
think, with the kids, I wanted to make more of an effort, that, you
Yeah.
know, let's celebrate, and this is part of you as well. And um, yeah, I want them to learn and enjoy it as well. So yeah, whether it's with my family that we do it or with just us as a little family, um, yeah, I think it's nice to make your own traditions, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful because you want the kids to have something to be, joyful about and to look forward to. And then, like you said, also find ways to celebrate the different parts that make them who they are, that come from their mom and dad.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you said before that you are now in touch with your family again. So how
Yeah,
did that
recently.
come about? And is it kind of you trying to make that happen?
No, I'm going to be honest with you. I would have probably never reached out because I had already tried and it didn't go so well. So I was at a point in my life where I was like, I'm going to let people be who they are and accept them for who they are. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of praise should go to my father because he was always constant in my life. He was never not in my life through all of this. And so he was very adamant and patient on bringing others around to accept me, accept my choices, accept my husband as well. And so just in the last few months, I reconnected with my mom, and it was surprising because it was not expected. It was interesting because then I had to learn how to go about this healing journey now in a new way because I was already healing from the disownment, and now she's back in my life. So it was
So it
about
was about
setting up new boundaries
you.
and being aware of who I am and where I am in my life and what works for me, but also, being protective of my husband and what we've built because that's my family, right? Through all of it, yes, blood is important, but I'm married now. We have our own life that we've created. And so we have to respect what him and I are doing over here to heal from past things. So that's kind of where we are now. And once again, I think what's important is accepting people for who they are. I never, because of therapy, I don't expect people to be anything other than who they've already shown me to be. And I think that that is like a life changing thing once we get to that part.
Mm. Um, have they met your husband?
Yeah, they've met him twice now. So they came to visit and it was really nice. And everybody, was very loving and kind. And, there's now like, they'll ask about him. They'll be like, just high and by kind of conversations and such. So that's kind of where we are now.
But that's progress, right?
Right. And I never expected it. And I think what I always try to tell everybody, because I shared a little bit of it online as much as I could, while respecting everybody still that's, in the situation. But I was very clear in saying that had this never come around, I need everybody to understand we were still going to be okay because there's so many out there who think that life ends after being disowned or that we could never be happy again or somehow we have to be miserable forever. But I wanted to make it very clear that had they never come around, I was still going to find joy in my life and I was still going to walk in purpose. And my husband and I were still going to build a healthy family, no matter what happened from the outside.
Do you feel like therapy has helped you with this?
Oh my
The
gosh, yeah.
whole emotions of being disowned and then seeing them again and all the emotions that came up?
Oh yeah, it's helped tremendously. And I think also being with somebody, I picked a partner who my husband is very optimistic. Like if you meet him, he always sees the glass half full. And so he's always living in the moment. And I think being around somebody like that inspired me to detach from a lot of the sadness that came from my past and a lot of the things that had happened. And coupled that with therapy, it's just been hard, Rena. I'll be honest. Like it's not easy, but I'm so grateful for these things, these tools, these beautiful tools that have been given to me that I've, taken and I've said, okay, let me see how I can use you to live a little bit of a more peaceful life.
Mm. And do you what do you think is gonna happen now? Like how is it, like do you feel like you're in each other's lives again, you and your family, and it's gonna be more of that? Or are you kind of like, you know what, I'm happy with a bit of distance?
So I talk to my mom quite a bit, it'll just be like small talk. You know how it is with like Desi moms, just catching you up on everybody else's stuff and, things like that. We talk quite a bit. Um, we don't live in the same state, so there's that distance. Um, I think that boundaries are important. I think I've learned that the hard way, unfortunately, because they don't teach you boundaries in Desi homes because there's no such thing. But I've learned that they're very important, and I believe that it's important to have space too. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not saying like I don't want to see you or I don't want to be around you, but it's important to know that hey, you guys are not the same exact people anymore. We're all adults too, and it's good and it's okay to not be in each other's faces all the time. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to communicate 24/7. We don't have to live in the same place. We don't have to live in the same house or anything like that. And I think that like I said, I learned that the hard way. And even my husband, he was just saying this morning, he goes, boundaries are important. He's like, it's good, like it's good where things are and we don't want to ruin it. So let's just keep going with having boundaries in place.
Mm. Yeah, the boundaries thing always makes me smile because, like, I actually thought it was normal for a family to open each other's mail. I seriously thought that was actually normal,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
only when I was a full-grown adult that I was like, "Oh, do your family not open each other's bank statements?" Like, "What?" I thought that was normal.
Normal. We all knew each other's pins when we all worked together. Like we knew each other's pins to our debit cards. And I was like, is that not normal? These are things. So those are things when I got into the relationship with Sam, he's like, why? Like he would point out things and I'd be like, what's wrong with X, Y, and Z? And like he'd have to tell me, like, we don't need to be in X, Y, and Z's business all the time. And then I was like, oh, so that was something else I had to learn.
Yeah. And, like, have there been, like, culture clashes with you guys? Like, like, just weird stuff, which is like because obviously you're Pakistani and grew up in that culture, and he's African American. Has there been stuff like that where he's like, "What
I
the
think
hell are you
probably
doing?"
yeah, definitely more from him because I grew up with a lot of African American friends and stuff. So I think more for him because there's like the oversharing thing that we just mentioned, the lack of boundaries, the kind of being in each other's business and all that. There's that kind of shocked him. And what else? I guess like things with the food too. I tease him. He eats like he'll eat shaman and he'll put it inside naan. And I'm like, please don't do that. Like that's not how you're supposed to have, so things like that. Or even like he gets shocked, like he's like, you really just eat raw onions? I'm like, I'm Pakistani. That's what we do. We eat onions and
With
chilies and all
everything.
that. Right? So things as such. And then I'm trying to think. There's definitely been more than that. So I'll put on Bollywood movies. Like I love to watch movies that I grew up watching, and he'll come in. He's like, "Why is everything always so sad? Why is everything so dramatic in these movies?" You know. And I was like, "That's just how we are. We're very animated people."
We literally are. Like the films aren't even a lie because people are literally like shouting and crying and in general life. So it's got yeah. My
Like I
husband
was watching. What were you gonna say right now?
no, go carry on.
I was gonna say I was just watching Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna the other day, and I that was one of my favorites growing up. So I was watching it for like the millionth time. And like this is a scene where Amitabh Bachchan is like dying, and I'm like, and he comes in and he just starts laughing. He's like, I can't do this, and he had to like get up and walk out. He's like, not sexy Sam dying. I was like, get out, please.
Sexy Smav, yeah. Oh god, that character was so funny. Um, no, I was gonna say like this whole the cultural thing is like I still find it like really bizarre that my husband doesn't really get chutney. Like we have to have chutneys and achars and everything. Like South Asian people are obsessed with condiments. We're obsessed with condiments,
Yes,
aren't we? Like either
yes,
achar or you have like raita or some kind of
right,
imli
yeah,
chutney.
I'm chutney.
He doesn't
He just
like
gets
he'll
it.
just have a samosa just like that, and I'll
It's
be like,
right. It's so funny because Sam actually noticed that. He goes, so you guys like food that is like really wet. He's like, you need to have like some type of gravy or something going on. And he goes, and I noticed that like they see people, he's like, the food has to be flavorful. And I said, well, you're in luck. So you don't ever have to worry about me cooking food that is like tasteless or flavorless. I'm going to season the heck out of our food. So you never have to worry about that.
Exactly, exactly. Um, it's funny though, like certain things because I've been together with my husband for 20 years, and that there's certain things which you kind of are just he probably thinks are normal now, but like, he went to the, I was laughing at him because, he went to the supermarket and, like the reusable bags, the cloth
Yeah.
ones, he took one and it said, it had this Punjabi radio station name on it, and it actually had, like, writing in Punjabi, and it's like, like, he wouldn't even think, "Oh, why am I carrying a bag that's got Punjabi writing all over it?" It's just the bag in the house, you know?
Right. Right, they just become accustomed to it. Sam, like, he had naan for breakfast. I wasn't even eating naan for breakfast. He comes around the corner, he's like, is that desi enough? Like, I was eating naan. I was like, why are you just eating naan by itself? Like, you didn't even have it with, he has like a strawberry smoothie in one hand and like naan in the
The
other. I
naan,
was
like
like,
it's
okay,
toast, you know what I mean?
right.
Like it's a piece of toast. Oh. You know what? It's really good to speak to you, and just like, yeah, these kind of things are quite funny, and I just wanna say thank you for just, sharing what you do share, and I know it's hard because, we're talking about things that are really sensitive, and just nobody likes to be like, "Oh, I was disowned," you know? It's a big deal. It's like a really emotional thing, but to kind of share that journey as much as you can is nice, and I think it has helped a lot of people. A lot of your things are really funny as well, like, there's a lot of comedy reels that you do as well.
Rena, my older brother and I used to joke that we handle trauma with like humor. We're like those people. We were like, we might as well laugh about it. So we have like really dark humors and stuff. So I try to show that a little bit more on social. But I really appreciate your platform and you allowing me to come on and discuss this stuff with you because I think we've all come such a long way as brown women where there's less fear, but I know we still have a long way to go. So I'm grateful for you and for what you're doing here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And can you just let people know where they can follow you on social media and see your content, your reels, and all that?
Yeah, so I'm at Purpose, Purpose, and Chai, and that's across the board. So you guys can check us out on YouTube. My husband and I have a podcast where we're very candid about a lot of things that Arena and I talked about. Also on TikTok, Instagram, and then the website is purposeandjai.com.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Natasha. And I hope that we'll stay in touch. It's been lovely talking to you.
You too,
And
Rena.
thank you for everyone who's tuned in. Thank you for listening. Make sure you follow me too at Sisterhood of Mommy Imperfect on social media or at Rena D. Annabelle. Until next week. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rena. That was amazing. I really hope you'll stay in touch. I loved talking to you. Oh, I'm sorry, Rena. I can't hear you. It just went quiet out of
I love talking
nowhere.
to you as well. I'm trying to end this
There we go.
broadcast. Why
There we
can't
go.
it
I
end
can
the
hear you.
broadcast?